Okay. Okay, well, we can get started because everybody is here. My name is Anna Sohosky. I'm the president of the New Mexico Book Association. Welcome to our monthly networking meeting. This month we're on Zoom. Next month we will be at Tiny's. So welcome all of you for attending. Next slide, please. That's our board. You can see there are a number of new board members. We added Lanisha Adams and Laura Morningstar Winder this year, which is really exciting. And then we still have our mainstays, Paula Lozier, of course, who is our treasurer, and Jordan Jones, our secretary historian, and Shirley Mellis, our past president, and Miguel de la Cruz, who's been a board member for a number of years. Luis Zazuta is our staff person and does an amazing job. If you send an email to Libro on our website, then Luis is the person who answers to you. Hi, Mary.
Oh,
Benefits of members. We're actually going to try and expand some of our membership benefits this year. But of course, networking and workshops are our primary ones that are online. Networking is done online with Zoom on a bi-monthly with in-person ones at Tiny's. Our online workshops, we schedule 3 in the winter, spring months and 3 in the fall months. So our upcoming workshops are about the dangers of artificial intelligence. We had ones that were about the benefits last fall. Now we're doing the other side, which is some of the risks of artificial intelligence. Then we are also hosting one about poetry. We have a number of awards. The SWIB, the Southwest Book Design and Awards is open right now. So if you are interested in learning more, go to our website to participate. The Harris Book Award is an annual award that we present at our winter fiesta. This year's award winner was Anna Castillo for her book So Far From God. In the summer at our summer gala, we award a book in hand award. So past recipients have been Garcia Street Books, Collected Works Books, and Jimmy Santiago Baca, among others. So I just talked about the 2 celebrations. We have member sales opportunities in the next one coming up. We're in Tucson right now. A number of people, book authors and also our board members are at the Tucson Festival of Books, which is the annual festival of independent book authors. And what we are also having a number of member sales opportunities. The next one is at the New Mexico Writers Dinner, which is on April 17th. So again, check the website to see if you would like to participate. There are a number, it's very well attended dinner, and you have a lot of exposure. Our quarterly newsletter will next come out in April, and it's a really good way to learn about what's going on currently with the Book Association. And we have a number of discounts that are listed there. Next slide, please. Oh, so the book display opportunity is on April 17th from 5:30 to 9:30. It's at the La Fonda in the Plaza. Registration is going to be announced on the website in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. If you plan to be at the event, we would greatly appreciate help packing and loading the books. That would be very helpful. Next slide. These are the upcoming deadlines for the Southwest Book Design and Production Award, which are also on the website. Next slide. And these are some of the discounts for NMBA members and non-members for SWIBDA, and those are also on the website. Next slide. Garcia Street Books. I think a number of you have participated, but this has become an amazing partnership. On the first Saturday of most months, we have expanded into the winter. We in the summer months we're under the portal. In the winter months we're inside the bookstore, and it gives you an opportunity to display your books. and for people to meet you who are coming to the bookstore. Next slide. Upcoming workshops. This is the first one I talked about, or second one, How to Be a Poet with Wayne Lee. Wayne Lee is a fixture in the poetry community in Santa Fe, so that'll be an exciting one to attend. Next slide. Networking meetings, a second Friday of most months, and the next one will be at Tiny's Restaurant. Next slide. So we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We're picking a topic. Well, we picked a topic before, but it's more of an interactive topic where people can talk to each other. And we have a small group today, so I think we can all stay in one group without having to be put out into rooms. Today's topic, which is ironic considering the wind gusts that we are experiencing in Santa Fe, and I don't know if other parts of the state are wind blown as well. But the winds in New Mexico come in the spring, from winter to spring. And so I'm interested in knowing, how does the change of seasons from winter to spring change your writing? Does it impact what you write about? Does it impact the time of day or the time you spend? And how does it impact your energy level? So I will open it up to the group to have some comment. I will start it off by saying I do a bit better in the winter writing, but I don't write very well during the high winds. It's distracting. But my best time of writing is probably in the fall and the summer months because I can't stand the heat. I'm not good at heat. So my subject matter, it doesn't really change. I tend to write in the summer months in the mornings. In the winter months or in the early spring, I tend to write in the afternoons because it's warmer. So other thoughts?
Well, I can talk about my experience, which is I find I have to make time all day, any day. The weather doesn't seem to matter as much as clearing away other appointments and making sure that I've got a solid block of time. Mostly these days I'm working on poetry and art, and I work entirely on the computer. So as long as I have internet connection, I'm doing fine. How about other people? What effect do you find the weather has on your work?
Or the change of seasons, yeah.
Well, this is Mary Grow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Can you see me?
No.
No, I can't seem to pull up anything on my screen here. Just, I don't know, we've got crazy wind out here and it always affects this program. So I'm sorry if I'm just a blank screen today. But I would say that for myself, much of the attention to a season is dictated by the kind of project I'm working on. So, for example, when I was writing Night Train to Odessa, I found that I was working a lot in the winter time. The book takes place mostly in the winter. And I found I really like to be freezing and just very uncomfortable from that perspective, because the heroine in the book is always experiencing difficulty with snow and wind and cold feet and all that sort of thing. So I did that. I also tried to get outdoors to just kind of feel the elements when they were really intense. And even though I used to live in Wisconsin, where winters are very brutal, I wanted to just try to get myself to experience what a winter could possibly be like in a city like Odessa in Ukraine. So that was sort of an influence, but otherwise, I would just say I agree with the other speaker that much of it has to do with how one can just find time every day or as many days as possible to be able to really work. And I find I write in longhand usually before I enter anything on the computer. So that allows for a certain kind of flexibility in terms of being outdoors or possibly taking a notebook somewhere. But nonetheless, you still have to cordon off a block of time and really have enough energy to be able to keep going with an idea until you can realize it on the page. So I think it's interesting. I think winter is a good time to write because by nature it's very introspective. And so if you want to get into the psychology of a character, that probably is a good match. But I think it's very, very specific for people. It's curious how the seasons do make a difference, and they make a difference with, the elements around us and everything. But certainly being aware of seasons and bringing them into your writing is really critical. So I think it's important to be able to put yourself out in nature, to be able to sort of understand what does it do? How does it affect a character? What kind of impact could a high wind have on somebody if they happen to be outdoors or they happen to engage in sailing or something like that, So, yeah, the seasonal aspect of an issue or a writing project, I think, is really central, particularly if you're talking about fiction. Yeah, so that's all I have to say, unless other
Well,
people.
I think it's really interesting. I think it was really interesting the way you talked about the subject you had was in Odessa, Ukraine during the winter. So it's brutally cold. And so you also had to sort of get in the mindset of the character and actually know the specifics of the environment. And although ours isn't as brutal, although I would argue Wisconsin is probably closer, and I was in Minneapolis, so that was closer. It wasn't the same thing. But it's sort of an interesting idea that you're associating your character with a season, and then you're in the season yourself.
Yeah, I think the psychological impact of that is tremendous. And again, seasons can just like moon phases and things like that. I mean, they can really foreshadow events or present a character or a situation in a particular way. I think there are certain authors and poets in particular that are very artful in being able to work with nature. I'm a big fan of the poet Kenneth Rexroth, and time and again I'll return to him to see what he's doing. Or Japanese poets, for example, they know how to capture a season and then turn it into a psychological moment for the reader.
Mm-hmm. Has anybody else used a particular season? Has a season been front and center in work that you've written, either as poem or fiction or anything else? Well, I can say that when I was writing some memoir work after my mother passed away, she passed away in December. So it was very much connected to the season and also to the holiday season. So it was all sort of jumbled up in its entirety. So for example, I have a scene where I'm on the pull-out bed in the living room because I have everything on her bed. This is when she was still in the hospital. And the Christmas tree lights were on. And I became sort of obsessed that the only way I could really feel like I could function night or day is to have the Christmas tree lights on 24/7. So I'd be laying in this expandable bed and just staring at the lights, and the wind would be raging like it is today in Santa Fe. And so it was very much central to the experience I was having, the emotions I was having, and the circumstances I was in. So I really pulled the season winter into that. I haven't written anything about happy days in the spring or summer. I think I need to get onto that. Jonathan, have you ever used a season as a focal point in a piece of poetry?
Well, I find it's a little different in that I've done fiction, say, on the life of Claude Monet. And it helped a lot to go to France and to sit in Giverny or to actually go to places where he painted and absorbed the atmosphere, and not necessarily climate, but the what's the weather like on the shores where he's painting, or what are the tides like, and um, it gave me those extra details that I could put back into the fiction as I imagined what he experienced while he was painting, and it made up for my lack of imagination. I would see details that would never have occurred to me, but there in front of, say, a wall made out of flint, the whole sense of what a building looks like in Normandy was something that you see pictures, but you don't get the impact as much. And so maybe it affects one tiny detail, but hopefully that makes the experience for the reader more tactile, more living in some sense.
I think about a Monet piece in London, and it's dark and rainy, and just sheets of rain are coming down, and that's a very different emotion that you have looking at that versus in the gardens.
Well, and he
Different.
just particularly liked fog in London, but also along the Seine, and
Yeah.
would get up at 5 in the morning to go out and in his little boat and sit out there in the fog. And we look at paintings now that are very blurry, but when you're on the site where he was painting, you're much more aware of drops of water on yourself and the fact that there's almost no breeze early in the morning.
Absolutely. How does the change of seasons impact your energy level? Do you have more energy in the spring? Does it sort of fade in the summer and the heat?
For me, no, I really like the spring, but I love the fall. I've noticed we used to live in Northern California where they like to say there's no seasons. And so coming here, it was great to watch and feel the changes, for, each change is exhilarating, and yeah, we have this terrible wind, you feel sandblasted now. Well, gee, we never had that in Berkeley, but we've been here for almost 30 years. We appreciate the fact that there are seasons, something that doesn't really happen as much in California.
Anna, this is Shirley. I agree. I too grew up in Northern California. Well, I grew up in Northern California, until I was about 18, and experienced the absence of seasons. And I just love it here because there are seasons that you feel, and yet I don't think it really affects. I like them all, and I like the changeability even within the season, but I don't think it really affects my energy that much in writing. Though I certainly, at one point I was writing about an experience in Tunisia, and or in Greece. Well, I was doing one and the other in Greece, and I remembered how it was in Athens with the dusty air, and it was so vivid in my mind. And I thought, well, let's see, I wish I could go back there to experience it, but maybe I can conjure up how it felt. Because, right.
I always think about Midwestern humidity. There's a certain smell in the air when the humidity is really up, and it's in the center of the country. So it's not like it's coming off an ocean or anything, but there's just a scent that's almost like tar, like fresh tar. and that I always remember about that part of the country. So I think about what I'm trying to think more about in my own writing is not just what I'm seeing, but what I'm smelling, what I'm feeling, how my body feels, how it changes, um, what I'm hearing. I think oftentimes writers are sort of in their their immediate reaction is to write what they see. And I think the senses go far beyond that. And so I'm interested in sort of thinking about scent and feel. Like, I mean, if you go out in the wind, then you really feel it today. And so, it's a different sort of way of description, I think.
In
It can,
general, the
that's a key.
Southwest,
Excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to comment. I think in general, the Southwest is a great place to write. The weather, the scenery. I can't speak so much for the East Coast or the Midwest, but I would say the Southwest is up there with regions in which writing and researching is a great place to do it.
And there are different parts of the Southwest. I mean, I feel like if I go up to the ski basin area, that's a very different environment than if I'm down here in the flatlands in El Dorado, for example. It's a different, you've got different scents, you've got different things you're looking at, you're looking for. So I think that for me, the change of seasons is not so much about changing my writing, but sort of how I walk in the world, I think, and with my senses, that changes.
I've also found that, this is Mary, I've also found that another way to approach it sometimes, if you're not actually in the place, is to have a number of photographs. And I guess because I work with historical novels, or I tend to amass a variety of photographs that are usually as close to the period as I can get, or paintings like you're talking about Monet, for example, and then you can look at his haystacks and see 4 different seasons or something, But certainly photographs can have certain trigger points, and I've found that they can be very useful. And also even old maps. I mean, sometimes there are maps that refer to particular seasons even, it's really curious, but you can look at the geographical landscape and get a sense of where you can be. And I'm sure that a lot of people can just zoom in on an internet and grab all this stuff, I tend to do it the old-fashioned way and haunt libraries and smell paper and things like that. So I tend to want to have that very tactile experience of actually holding a map, rather than looking at one online or something like that. But I have found that getting a number of photographs, particularly from the Library of Congress, they'll have various archives that you can access, and those can be really helpful. So I don't know. I mean, occasionally, all of those types of photographs will have something to do with the season, unless it's an, interior photo or something. But even then, you might have, what kind of clothes people are wearing in a particular season or a particular period. So that's just another angle to access that aspect of what is so critical to one's writing and description in particular.
It's interesting you said the Library of Congress, Mary, because I've just been in touch with the U.S. Navy Historian's Office because I'm writing an article about the World War II horse patrols that patrolled the Atlantic coast, the Carolina coasts, and the West coasts, looking for foreign ships suspicious. They weren't a combat mission, but they were sort of sentries. They were looking for enemy potential attack, and it happened. It started after Pearl Harbor. And so what I have access to through the new U.S. Navy Historian's Office are these images of paired patrols um, riding the beaches. And, some of them are galloping and some of them are just walking. And, it's just so it's interesting to sort of try and put myself in that place and what and what I've read about these sort of environment, geographical and climate environment that they were in. For example, in North Carolina, they were sort of attacked by sandflies and mosquitoes all the time. And so that really changed their behavior in terms of how they executed their patrols. So I'm with you, Mary. I'm kind of I actually went on newspapers.com and got a couple of articles from the Albany Democratic Herald in 1943 describing these things. And I can just fall down the rabbit hole of research, pardon me, because it's so fascinating. Excuse me 1 minute. Allergies. So as an editor, Jeff, what do you find when you're reviewing writers? And I'm so sorry, just please. Do the seasons, do any of these sets sort of play into some of the writers you've read? Excuse me.
What was the last part you said?
Seasons and sense,
Oh,
so
like
senses.
like the five senses or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking of a man whose book I edited. It was a memoir. He went on a pilgrimage. He went on the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and before he started, he was in a French town, and he went into a boulangerie, a bakery, and he described this croissant, this almond croissant, and I was just really kind of blown away by the description, because it was not a look but taste, and everything was kind of in there, and I was working. I mean, it was sent to me by a developmental editor I partnered with, and she would sometimes tell him to in order to bring out flesh out some description, she would remind him of the croissant description that he did. So try to bring out more of the senses, not just sight, but taste and maybe even the way it was felt in the mouth or whatever. So anyway, that stuck out to me, and it was interesting to me to hear her say, the developmental editor say, that she would remind him about that particular scene, and to try to develop the other scenes that he had was working on.
That's
But yeah,
interesting.
he was quite graphic. Now that I think about it, in fact, what I do is I do a sample edit for authors, so then I can determine how many hours I think I can edit, how many words I can edit in an hour. And but the first chapter of his book was so intriguing, well, actually horrifying, really, that I had to do a longer sample edit than I normally do, because I had to find out what happened. It turned out he came home one day and his wife was basically in a catatonic state. She was just standing there, staring blankly, and he was trying to get her to the ER. And anyway, it turned out at the end of the chapter that she had brain cancer. He thought it was a stroke or something, but it turned out to be brain cancer. So that's one of the reasons why he ended up going on this pilgrimage. So, but it was quite well written. Actually, it should be coming out this month sometime.
What's the title of the book?
Let's see. Let's see. something about, and the title is Grief Cave. Like he uses that analogy a lot, being in a grief cave, and there's something about getting out of the grief cave, but that's not the word. I can't remember what it is right now. But anyway, but he was very descriptive, and he's also the developmental editor was impressed, and I was impressed too with how in touch he was with his feelings. So he would talk a lot about his feelings, and he was really good at analogies, very, very creative. But sometimes he just did it too much. I said, might want to scale it back a little bit, particularly when he had two analogies right after one after the other. So, but anyway, it was quite a remarkable book.
That's interesting about having two analogies, sort of one right after another, because I'm wondering whether writing has changed, has moved away from descriptive image-driven writing to more sort of I don't know, just sort of simple sentences. Does anybody see that? Does anybody feel that with their descriptive culture and image-driven culture, or are we being sort of perfunctory?
I think ChatGPT is a good example of where we're headed. When you ask a question, you get a very well summarized set of ideas, mostly stolen from Wikipedia, with bullet points and clearly well organized. And the kind of thing that you would think a good undergraduate would get a B+ on, but there's certainly no interest in metaphor or analogy. It's quite flat-footed. And
that's what I was thinking, yeah.
I think we also are tending toward brevity in the extreme, where not just the length of a paragraph, but the length of a sentence. We use fewer subordinate clauses now. There's less logical connection between sentences in a paragraph. It's more one moment, one moment, one moment. And I think that reflects the lack of ability to pay attention for longer than a few seconds. Years ago, I did a book on commercials, and that was in the 70s. Back then, 1 minute was a normal length for a commercial. Now 15 seconds is long. And when you look at any individual frame within a commercial, it's not just something has to be moving, but something has to come at you, and then something else is going up. Meanwhile, something else is coming down. So even within the 2 seconds or 1 second of a frame, there's a vast amount of information that we can barely grasp, but we're impatient for more information. And that means smaller chunks at faster pace, I think.
Shirley, you were going to say something?
No, I was thinking because I'm into revising a second memoir, which I overwrote. I mean, by thousands of words, and now I'm trying to cut and sharpen. But I think it depends on. I mean, some moments call for brief, perfunctory statements or dialogue, and then others are sort of you're open and feeling what's around you. So I think there's a mix, at least from my experience and in reading, there's a mix of this. Though, Jonathan, what you say about these commercials certainly rings true, and it's with people's focus on iPhones and all that sort of attention span or lack of it is reinforced. So in any case, it's really challenging for a writer incorporate these things.
I remember the name of the title. It's Surviving the Grief Cave.
Thank you.
Surviving the Grief Cave. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I mean, another aspect is letters. I mean, I just finished reading a biography about George Sand, and there are all these letters and correspondence that she had with Flaubert at the time. And they're just fascinating to read, and they're very descriptive and just wonderful. And then there's the correspondence between Henry James, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Mark Twain. I mean, if you can imagine these men communicating with one another and writing these substantial letters to one another, and the kinds of ideas that they're exchanging. And these people are traveling all over the world, you know, they're on boats and they're, you know, just, you know, putting on miles, but they're still in correspondence. So, I mean, I've often wondered what kind of letters we'll have in the current era, if any at all, because it all kind of goes down to emails, and even those have gotten shorter and shorter. So that now you have a series of texts or something, you know, so it's again almost this, you know, commercialization of everything just kind of moving in that direction. But on the other hand, I would hope, and I still believe that good writers are out there, and good writers are involved with presenting a very, you know, broad perspective of the world, and that it isn't just coming to us in sound bites, but certainly, yeah, certainly there have been major changes in the way that people put the printed word on the page and how they tend to share it with one another, whether it's through letters or through newspaper articles or whatever, you know. So I think our culture has become much more visual, and that's made a big difference in the change of how the image is more significant than the actual text. And that shift really has taken place, you know, over the last 100 years or whatever, in a very substantial way. So that now if there was a fire in your house or something, you probably wouldn't, as in years past, people would run to save the family Bible or something, you know. Now they would probably, you know, grab their computer or their cell phone with all their photographs, you know. I mean, so, I mean, it's just a very different way of recording what we think is significant.
And a lot of times the visual doesn't have context, and so things are taken out of context, and you need the written word to explain what you're seeing. And you know, Kevin, you go ahead.
Me?
Oh, I thought you were going to speak. That's all right.
Oh no, I didn't mean to. Can you see me?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if my photograph was up. I'll work on that next time.
No worries.
I'm just listening now, and I don't have much to say. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know what happened there.
No, that's quite all right. I wasn't sure if you were getting ready to say something. That's all right. Ruth, Lisa, do you have any thoughts?
But in terms, I will just say one thing briefly.
Sure.
I am in Carlsbad, New Mexico, just to introduce myself. I've arrived here recently. I am appreciating being a member of your association. I have limited experience with these types of things. In terms of the challenges of this particular topic, I'm originally from New York State. I used to work in very hard weather conditions. I'm in my 60s now, so I'm getting up there. But for writing, the season, it's really a mental game for me. And that's really the hardest part. And that's to believe in myself, that I have something worthwhile to put down on paper. And I think that's that in time, because I have so many other loves. I love my guitar. I love my guitar. I could spend days, weeks. I could spend the rest of my life on my guitar. I love dogs. I have dogs. I love dogs like they're treasures. They are, so, and I could spend my whole life being with dogs. So it's time. And then it's really, once I find something I start writing on, I have to commit and say, it's worth it for some reason that I don't understand. And then I just have to follow through with whatever the outcome will be. And so to someone's point earlier, they had mentioned going down a rabbit hole of research. Well, I really love research, and I can see how that can be a problem, but I have found treasures upon treasures of different thinkers, writers, as I've gone into these rabbit holes. So also commenting to Jeff Brauscher, the editor, on the Walk the Way is a movie. Have you
Oh, yes.
have you seen that movie, Jeff?
No, I was I think I was trying to find it on, yeah, I could only find it on Yahoo and not Yahoo, on YouTube. And
Well, it's worth
I know there was
moving. Okay.
something wrong with it. I couldn't watch it. So, but I did want to watch it.
Yeah, that's Martin Sheen movie.
Right.
And it's really good. So anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Kevin. It's good to hear your
Hi,
perspective.
hi, Anna.
Hi, Ruth.
Hi. I'm sorry I don't have my video up either. I am very new to the group. I have been a resident of Los Alamos for the last 35 years. And I liked everything that Kevin said there. I also love my guitar. And I just shut down my business of a doggy daycare for the last 10 years here in Los Alamos. And I'm writing my first book about dogs and children. It's a children's book. And so a friend of mine encouraged me to join this group, and I'm happy to be here. It's my very first connection with any of you. I will be at Tiny's next month in person and inviting a friend that encouraged. So yes, I have a lot to learn. I too am in my 60s, and I feel I have a message of connection in my last 10 years being immersed in dogs, but I've always had a dog in my life. And people's hearts melt when they see a dog, when they start talking about their dog or a dog, they just melt. The connection is so intense and real. And I'm looking forward to learning from all of you and to putting a message out into the world. I realized my mission on opening the doghouse was to put dogs and people together that wanted to be together and needed each other. And I found that that's not always just the owner-pet relationship. It can be working with the dogs. It can be visiting a shelter. There's so many connections. So I'm getting my creativity juices back rolling because it was just 6 months ago that I shut the doghouse down. And I'm sorry for the loss of your mother in December, Anna.
It was quite a long time ago. It's going on 15 years, but thank you. I mean, it's interesting because these things are not raw for many, many years. And then all of a sudden something happens, you go, oh, there's that. So thank you for that. And it's so funny what you say about dogs. I'm known in the canine and equine community as an easy mark for a treat.
Yep.
I'm like, I admit it. I'm just terrible. Anytime I see it, when I was a kid, when I was in a stroller, my mother would tell a story of me in a stroller, and I see a dog, and I'd be reaching for the dog, and it could be anything, could be an attack dog, and I'd be like, it's a dog.
Yes. Oh, and you see it in children, especially. Well, everyone, everyone with a kind heart, I will say, because I unfortunately have met people that don't deserve to have it.
Yes.
But the majority, people with a heart and a good heart, and with people with empathy, and we love dogs. And so I very much look forward to learning once again from all of you and seeing how this next chapter what the next chapter reveals.
Well, welcome, Ruth. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I want to be involved. I want to get involved and be involved and learn from this group. So thank you for allowing me to share. I'm, like I said, I'm in Los Alamos. I've been here for 35 years. And so I hope to see a lot of you next month at Tiny's.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you. And by the way, the seasons do affect. I absolutely feel all of that. The change, as you said, Anna, this wind, the wind up here today, it's 34 degrees and it feels like 5 degrees because of the wind.
Yes, I
And
know. Yeah, I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
so seasons do affect. I mean, yeah, we're part of nature and it affects all of us. I love living in 4 seasons. I have lived in a place without seasons, so to speak. And I love the 4 seasons and what it brings up, and it brings up in us, and how connected we are with nature and the planet. So once again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And as we start to sort of wrap up, Lisa, do you have any thoughts about any of the things we talked about today?
I've really enjoyed listening to what everybody's been saying on this topic. It's a good topic, very timely, and enjoyed listening. As a reader, I like when stories take into account the weather of a place, the seasons, the changing seasons of a place. As an editor, I'm actually working on a historical fiction set in northern New Mexico right now. And not only does it take into account New Mexican weather, but also it's set in 5 parts for seasons. So it starts in the spring of one year and then ends in the spring of the next year. And it's really, really interesting how the seasons affect the characters and how they play a part in the story.
Excellent. That's very interesting. So you and Jeff have a definite connection on content that you've edited before or reviewed. So that's interesting. And then Mary, of course, embedding her character in herself. Hope you had your heat on, Mary, when you were writing. You said you like to not like to be cold, but you experience the cold as your character would.
But Night Train to Odessa, actually, the novel that I have here, this novel is divided into 4 seasons, actually, and it begins in autumn, which is and I chose to begin it in autumn because of the Russian Revolution, which is taking place in Ukraine, has roots there at that particular season. But also because the event that takes place in the first chapter is one that would have to take place in autumn. And so then the book proceeds in the course of 1 year, and then a great portion of it is in the winter. And so it's interesting how the seasons did make a difference, and also it made a difference with how the characters expressed themselves and what kinds of events took place, at those particular times.
The writer Ali Smith built a whole series on the seasons. So, for example, she had autumn. Let's see what other Ali Smith's. Ali Smith. I think she did the whole series of books around the seasons. She's a Scottish author, and she wrote autumn, winter, spring, summer. She wrote all of them. Yeah, so she built a whole series based on the seasons. So that's interesting as well. Well, thanks to all of you for attending today. This was a very this is an interesting conversation. A lot of people brought up some very salient points, and and please let me know, or let Louise know, if you like this format, because one of the things we're trying to experiment with is to have sort of ideas come out of writers who are in attendance at Zoom or at Tiny's. We introduce ourselves, but we also can learn so much more from what we have perspectives on other writing subjects. So please let us know if this is a good format and you enjoy it, and anything that we can do better. So thanks very much for attending.
This is a
Yeah,
space
good
for, it's a space for all of us to network. If you have any questions or doubts on your journey, whether it's writing a book or editing or book design, this is a good spot to ask questions. And I do want to follow up. Next month we will be in person at Tiny's on April 11th. The registration is now live on our website, so we do ask that you RSVP. If there are any changes, if we have to change the venue, things like that, that's why we ask for the RSVP. And we also have the upcoming workshop with Wayne Lee, Always Be a Poet. That'll be on March 26th at 1 p.m. If you're unable to make it, you can still purchase, and we record those workshops so you can watch it at your convenience. And we have our blog on the website, so I do ask, that's a space for all of you to promote a book, to send updates of book display opportunities, whatever you'd like. Send me the text to any images you'd like, and I'll get it posted. I know a few of you have already sent me content, which I love to keep that blog up to date. And just feel free to email us at libroentry@gmail.com for any concerns, any questions, and I can redirect you to the right person. Before we part, are there any final questions or comments?
Well, many thanks to all of you. Stay warm, stay inside out of the wind. And we'll see you at Tiny's next month.
great.
Right.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, Anna.
Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.